Hey, Jen, Bianca, Sylvia, Ramos. Ah, so Jen is in New Zealand as well. John Lee's in New Zealand. There you go.
Are you? Whereabouts are you, John Lee?
I'm in Auckland. You?
Yeah, I'm down south in Canterbury.
Oh, yeah.
And Bianca's in Poland.
Poland.
Mm.
Interesting.
Yeah, an interesting part of the world at the moment.
Mm.
Nice shirt, Lynette.
So, John Lee, what's brought you here?
I forgot the Awakening Curriculums Retreat. And then Vince was a helper there, and I was just in a convo with him.
Cool.
What about you? How'd you find Vince?
Essentially through them as well. Pernilla first of all, and just through watching videos. And I think I saw Vince in a 3 Continents of Awakening group. Yeah.
Yeah, but and I want to say they didn't find Vince; they found each other. Found something quite way beyond just me.
Or is it also kind of that thing like almost finding yourself or finding the self?
But yeah, Bianca has a the self that Bianca found she doesn't like. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's, yeah.
I wouldn't like, I wouldn't say, but I don't like myself. It's just the being, but I don't like.
The being. So that's different to the self? It is, I guess, yeah. But how is...
Well, because saying I don't like myself, it's as if I had a different self, then I would like it.
But you wouldn't, because that's not what the...
Mhm.
Dislike's not the right word either, is it? There is not harmony, would you say, with being? And when you say being, we talk about existence.
Mhm.
Yeah. So all you guys have got to help me here. This is a good trick, isn't it? This one. What? It's the fact of existence, or the quality of existence. What is it that is not good for you? Not pleasant, or words are so hard, aren't they?
I guess you would say it's the reaction to existing.
Okay. Yeah.
Like,
So what immediately jumps to my mind here is, how do you know you're existing? I don't know, it sounds like it could be a stupid question, but what is it that you interpret as existing?
it's the difference between being under general anesthesia and just about anything else.
So say that one again.
The difference between being under general anesthesia
Yes, got it. Yep. Yeah.
and
Not.
about anything else.
Mm. So being aware is where would you call it pain?
Okay?
What's
No,
the result of being aware? The response to being aware is what you're talking about, isn't it?
the word that often returns is imprisonment, entrapment.
Does that feel like an entrapment? Does that have to do with the body, or the life, or can you explain it further?
I guess you mean who is entrapped in what? Yes?
I guess you could, yeah. I'm also trying to understand a bit better, because I haven't heard much about it yet. So just kind of clarification, or if that's even possible.
Mhm. Mm. So I say uh, mm, the witness, the watcher, uh, is imprisoned in watching this movie of the life of Bianca.
Yeah. I get
But
an
it
image
can
of-
be anyone anyone's anyone else's life, not. Mm.
So I haven't had this image popped into my head of somebody in a chair with these things that are holding their eyes open, that they can't close their eyes, they can't not see what's in front of them, and they're whatever, but they're strapped into the chair, totally helpless, and can only look at what can't shut it out. Is that how it feels?
Yes.
So that feeling, would be predominantly the feeling of being held, of being forced, of being trapped, helpless, totally helpless. And what's coming in through the eyes that can't be avoided is not pleasant. I mean, if it was a pleasant input, then being trapped, and that wouldn't matter, would it? So I guess I presume it's unpleasant what's coming in. Is that accurate? Or maybe it's nothing to do with what's coming in. It's just the fact that you can't shut your eyes and block it out.
Mm-hmm. Yes, like even pleasant things are tiring.
Okay. So it's not about what's coming in, but rather your inability to disengage. That it's the forced engagement that is tiring with whatever comes in, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, doesn't matter. It's the exhaustion that comes from being unable to stop it. Was that accurate, what I said? would you say that the exhaustion comes from some effort?
No.
No. So what is tiring about what comes in? How does the tiring happen? How does the exhaustion happen? Generally we would say exhaustion happens as a result of effort, but in this case that's not the case. Exhaustion happens for some other reason. Why? What comes to mind as the?
I don't know how you say it in English. It's material fatigue of material. I can. I will check it. Yes, material fatigue.
Yes. As
So
as in-
there can be no effort, but after a long use, you know, the curtains will will just
yes, yeah.
fall apart.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Mm. Generally, we would see material fatigue as the structure of, or whatever the structure is made of, is that gets tired and starts to disintegrate just from vibration or whatever reason, maybe even sun damage or who knows. But it's just the sheer length of time that it's been going on where the exhaustion comes from. Is that accurate? That's a jump from the material fatigue, but it's kind of like that, yeah, because we're not talking about a physical material that can break down now, but we can talk about this metaphorical structure that holds it together is what's breaking down. Yeah.
Right now, I'm enjoying the feeling of helplessness.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Because there's no effort involved in that.
it's calmer.
Karma, yeah.
It feels like I got tired with hoping for a change.
Mm. That's
So,
a really good place to get. That giving up stage, yeah, can be really a great portal sometimes. Yeah. So would you say that helplessness is different to what we were talking about before, that although there was helpless involved in that, but this is a different kind of helplessness. This is almost like a voluntary giving up. This kind of helplessness that has, you're enjoying it.
Mm, I think that it's just usually when we talk about feeling helpless, there is still some hope that someone will come to the rescue or something will change. Uh, or I will do something.
Yeah.
But
That's
it
not the
can
case
be,
now.
yes, but usually there is some hope
Mm.
because there is a possibility of change.
That's not the case for you now?
Yes, maybe because of the tiredness, the story has come up that there is no hope in this case. But
The big but, of course, is that you're here, which would suggest that there is still some hope.
yes, it is.
Maybe not hope. I mean, maybe hope's, you know, we don't necessarily come here. We may be just putting ourselves in a situation to discover without expectations. Who knows? Who knows? Well, I take it back. It doesn't imply necessarily hope. But it might, but not necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same thing with you, Bianca, but I notice a lot of time this fatigue as well, but I see it as something positive because sometimes when I find myself running after things again, like hoping that will change everything, like this +1 game, then at some point it's like, no, it's not worth it. Just like, don't try it again. It's like too much effort. It costs too much energy and it doesn't do anything good, you know? Like, it's sometimes it feels a bit like, for example, when my laptop is overheating and then it shuts down or something, and it's just like a mechanism. But for me, it's like really, I mean, it could sound like, to somebody else, it could sound like a depression or something, like, no, avoiding everything or something. But I really don't see it like that. It's rather like, no, already did that. It's not really necessary to engage in this again and waste so much energy. I mean, it's not even an intellectual decision. It's just like an energetic thing.
I agree, and I even think that depression may be also like this. But at some point the body is so tired with the self and what the self is doing that it just shuts down. Yes, Vince, I think even if you would tell me now that I'm doing this to avoid something, I wouldn't give a fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're just a huge question mark for me. I'm just so intrigued all the time to kind of want to know more. I just want to, I can't imagine where you're coming from. It's just, wow, I don't know. But it's really interesting. I find it intriguing. But yeah. And I want things for you sometimes, and then I take a reality pill and go, well, I can't do much about that. Yeah. I don't know if what I want for you is what's good for you or either. But you make my life interesting. You certainly do. And I don't mean in an entertaining way, although it is entertaining as well. I mean, it's there is just curiosity here. Just, yeah. Mm. So you don't look happy, Sylvia.
I don't look happy, Vince.
Mm.
Well,
You're looking
I
very
just
serious
woke.
there.
I just woke up. Half woke up,
Okay.
but maybe I'm not particularly happy either. I have been doing this, how to say? Every time I wake up with this fright in here, with this burning in here, as you suggested, I have been like trying to talk to it, asking, what is it that you want to show me? I have also been trying to increase a little bit the love and compassion, the empathy, diligently, because I have quite a few occasions in which to try this. And not very long ago, when I woke up, also, I tried. And then you said, and observe if anything changes or if any answer comes up. And well, no. So far, the answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not aware of any change or of any answer.
And the feeling is the same still each day when you wake up.
The feeling can change from one day to the other a little bit. It presents itself in a number of variations. Although the central feeling is always similar. Sometimes it's a bit stronger and sometimes weaker a little bit. Sometimes it's a little bit more here or more here, but it doesn't change much if it's 1 centimeter higher or lower.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And
So
the general feeling is what?
it's a fright. It's It's a total fright. I wake up into a fright. It's not, I have observed this since a long time. It's hardly ever so that I wake up and I feel like calm or whatever, or I don't even know what to feel. It can happen, but it's not usual. Usually I wake up into a fright like this.
Mm.
So this is
And
it.
have you had any inkling that this happens at some point in your waking up process? It happens, like, are you awake when it happens, or is it happening when you wake up already? Like, so does it start while you're still asleep?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
This is the second thing you said. Mhm.
Mm.
When I wake up and it's not here, which I mean, obviously it can happen, but it's like in periods of time. When I was, as you know, I was in South America for 6 months until 3 months ago. In South America, during the 6 months, it didn't happen, never.
Oh, okay. So it's
I-
location specific.
Yes, I come back home and it happens again.
Right.
And even at home, there are periods of time when it does not happen.
Mm. So,
Uh,
tell me this, that home has been always the same place since it started?
I have lived in a different home for a few times, for a few years, and it also happened.
Right. Right. So it's been in two different locations,
Yes,
but always it's been home for you.
yes.
Yeah.
Wow, this is interesting what you just said.
Mm. It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
See, we start to get a glimpse of association.
Yeah. Well, as I told you last time, for me, it's difficult to take this idea out of my head because it doesn't feel like it's a made up idea. It's more a feeling that some filter was taken away,
Yes.
and I could see that this has to do with my birth, and you know, coming out of the womb is also coming out of one's home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what you said, you know, home, now maybe it is happening in what I consider to be my home.
Mm.
So either this house or the previous house. But after awakening 8 years ago, it did not happen for a very long time. But you know what, when you said it, it felt like that is home. That, I mean, when I was in that, I was always in, I cannot say even that I was in the flow, because I was the flow itself.
Yes. Yep. Gotcha.
I know that I'm still the flow and everything. And I also get this feeling many times, but it's not permanent like in former times. It's not like always this. So when I was when I was that flow, I never got this feeling of pride. And I was home.
Same home?
No home in the sense that
Yes.
there was not a night to be at home, but it was home somehow. I
Yes.
was always that. It's a way of speaking, because I know I
Yeah.
am still, how can I say that?
I get it. Yeah.
Anyway, when I sleep, I am that. But at some point, when sleep finishes, I feel like thrown out violently from that.
Yes. Yeah. Mm,
Exactly.
mm.
But it's very, I mean, it's somehow, you know, it's very intense, and it's not just and then it's away. It lasts a few minutes. Sometimes it lasts a few minutes, but it can last even an hour, 2, 3 hours.
Yeah. 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 Depends on whatever. Yeah. Yeah. So at the moment, I'm having this image of the baby hitting the atmosphere, hitting the world, right? Being expelled out, right? Suddenly after a long time and a lot of effort and a lot of feelings of wow, will I survive? Then instead of relief and release at the final birth out into the world, there is this huge shock. The shock of being cold for the first time ever. The shock of all the noise that was never there before. The shock of the light that's so bright that it hurts the eyes, etc.
Yes.
You know, that could be a pretty frightening experience, I imagine. For
Yeah, and then, you know, at that my aunt who was there at my birth told me that I wouldn't breathe. They pulled me up and hit me on my bum, but various times because I didn't breathe.
yep,
And then they had to inject me with adrenaline or something,
Yes,
maybe
yes.
adrenaline.
Kickstart.
And so
Yeah.
this whole thing was quite long and quite intense until I finally breathed. And that's also the sense I get, that sometimes I feel this burning inside. It's like when you don't breathe and then suddenly
Yes.
your lungs fills with the air. I don't know if I made this explanation up.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't
to a
matter at
certain-
all. Yeah.
Doesn't it?
No, you respond to it, whether it's imaginary or real, doesn't matter.
Really?
Mm.
Okay, because I get these images that look like spontaneous images. Then my thoughts start to reflect on the image, and then I say, okay, it makes sense. Okay, this must be the reason. But then, you know, it doesn't help anyway. It hasn't
Yeah,
helped so
yeah,
far.
sure.
It's
Yeah.
just that something gets a little bit quieter in here and says, okay, you know, you're not crazy. There is a reason for this. But well, so what? It's still there.
Mm. So it's almost like when you wake up, you relive that first breath moment, that presumably terror that happened
Yes,
in that moment. Yeah.
yes.
I'll bet if we could put some meter on you that measured your activity in sleep, that none of that would be there while you're asleep. It comes with you
None of
waking
that.
up. Yeah.
None of that.
Yeah.
I have noticed another detail. I don't know if it's important, but usually this fright happens only when I have slept enough. Because if I get up, I'm woken up, let's say at 2 o'clock in the morning, usually, and my body has not slept enough, there is no fright.
Yeah.
I just fall asleep again. But when it's about time to, okay, now you have to get up, and my body is sort of, you know, not sleepy anymore, not tired anymore, then I wake up with a fright.
Mm.
But, you know, it's as if somebody once suggested to me, it's as if you were, you know, not wanting to leave, not wanting to face the day. But I don't feel like that. It's not that I don't feel like, I don't think I am depressed, or I don't think I don't want to face my day. It's not that sort of thought that is tied to the sensation.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's good. Good. Yeah. Yeah. A moment ago, I was thinking along the same lines. I was thinking that, and if we always use the image of the baby being born, and it was like at the point where you took that first breath, there was also that same moment where you were committed to face the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that I was thinking a moment ago was the scary bit, but you're saying, no, that's not a feeling that you have. So yeah, trust your feelings. You know, they tell you things. Yeah. Yeah. We may not know what they're telling you, but they do tell you. Yeah.
And then there is another thing that I noticed, that I am usually judged as a, maybe not as fearless, but as, at least as courageous. So people say, you know, because I can travel alone through the world, I can do that kind of things. People think that I don't have fear. It's not true, because I do have fear. But
you're capable.
it is true that until I was about 23, I think I remember I was 23 or 24, I was doing some sort of seminar, breathing stuff, and I discovered this feeling, or 20 or something like that. Well, it first came up when I smoked marijuana, but then it came up during a seminar. But I realized that my first 20 years, I almost did not know what fear was. People were talking about fear in that seminar, and I was going like, what do they mean?
Yeah,
You know?
gotcha. Yeah.
And it is as if I had cut myself off this kind of feeling, which is very human. But I didn't feel it. I didn't know what it was. I discovered it when I was 20 and something. So I know I can understand that, you know, being cut off for many years, then when it comes up with a certain violence.
Sure.
You know, but it has been coming up for 40 years now. I'm just tired. I'm very tired of that. I'm sort of fed up. There is like a wanting here, not to have it anymore.
So what's coming up for me now is a slightly different picture, and that is that, and please tell me, I'm inquiring, that apparent courage that you experienced up until you were 20 was really a kind of a denial of vulnerability.
I think so.
And that what happened at 20, what happened when you smoked that marijuana cigarette, was that you discovered something. You discovered that you really are vulnerable. Now, it didn't mean that it doesn't mean that you lose the courage that you had before, but it comes from a different place. But all of a sudden, right, you let go of that armor that people deciphered as courage, and it was actually armor. It was actually a deadening process rather than a whatever we're talking about, courage. And that marijuana cigarette, what it actually did was it inhibited some filter that you had been using all your life up till that point. And all of a sudden that filter got broken. And what you discovered, what came through after that, was your vulnerability, your ability to be hurt, your ability to be to go back to that non-breathing state, right, with the cord around your neck or whatever, needing to be smacked to get the breath going again. Now that's just a story that comes to mind, and I have no idea whether it fits or not, but you will. You can say yes or no. Do you have an expansive body feeling or a contracting body feeling? What's your reaction to that story?
I think when I smoked that cigarette, I just re-traumatized myself. I mean, for the second time with the same thing, with the memories that cigarette allowed memories that were stored away, far away.
A filter shut
from my
down.
brain.
Yeah.
They came up, and it lasted so many hours, and they felt like squeezed into something in my head, like it was like exploding. And then I came to know that I was born with forceps. I didn't know it, but I felt here it was all those things. These were very physical during just after the smoking. I could not breathe almost, and I told my friends, it's as if I had to breathe in fluid. I remember telling them that.
There you go. Yes. Yeah.
The air is like fluid, I said, and all this lasted many, many hours, and they were afraid to take me to emergencies, to the doctor or something. It was also nighttime.
Just as well, really, I think.
Just what?
Just as well they didn't take you to the hospital or whatever, because they would have given you tranquilizers, I rather imagine. Help you suppress it again. So, yeah.
So what that it was like the lid of a pan that went off.
Yeah.
And it took a long time to settle, very, very long time to settle, because after this I had physical, for example, my sense of touch was disturbed. I couldn't feel very well on my skin. I had many like neurological stuff going on, not extreme. I could still live, I was at university. I could still do my exams, but it was, somehow strange. I felt like an anesthesia on some level, physical level, not here.
Yeah.
And then later years, a neurologist once told me that it was a functional thing of my brain, because my mother, at some point, they gave her anesthesia when she was giving birth, because it was too long, like 50 hours.
Yep.
And this anesthesia went into the placenta, and it's like my brain is remembering this, and this presents itself. So this is what happened then. Now I lost track.
Yeah, okay, it'll come back for you. So as you were in the birth canal, you were already having, you mentioned that you were having trouble breathing, but of course you don't breathe in the birth canal because you're still getting oxygen through the umbilical cord, and you are breathing embryonic fluid when you're in the, if there, I don't know whether there's actually a transference of fluid in and out. Are your lungs actually working when you're in the womb? I don't know. But regardless, but yet there was this, you were not getting enough oxygen happening for you. That's what I'm getting out of that, what you said. And that could well have been because the anesthetic was replacing the oxygen through the placenta. Yeah. So it certainly seems like this waking up startling thing that you've got is directly associated with that birth experience. And the other thing that makes a lot of sense for me with that is that although this is pre-verbal and therefore there is no intellectual memory of it happening, your body remembers. Your body actually remembers every single experience that it had. And this is now what's active for you is that bodily experience, which certainly wasn't pleasant in any way. There were, well, maybe let's put it another way, that there were a lot of unpleasant aspects to it.
Well, it wasn't pleasant. It's like sometimes I ask myself, but is this a judgment of my mind? You know, is the mind saying, I don't like it? Or because there is a sense that it's actually not pleasant because the body has an instinct to live. The
Yes.
body has an intrinsic instinct
Yes.
to survive.
Yep.
But here it was like shut down almost. It was like a fight between living and dying.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Not even,
one of the
not
things
even,
you're going.
not even knowing what it is I want. Is it live or is it die? And mind you, I don't think I'm depressed. Nevertheless, sometimes this comes up. Is it actually living that it's like a confusion somehow.
Yes, yeah, I get that. Yeah. There's an interesting one with animals, and an animal, let's say, an animal gets eaten by a snake. A really interesting situation happens at some point very quickly. The animal seems to not be there anymore. They vacate the body. There's a total acceptance of what's going on to the point where there's no struggle anymore. That happens. And I see this in animals over my years of living. I've seen this a few times. And I find it interesting, it's a way of the animal not suffering, when the animal doesn't, that halfway down the throat of the frog doesn't go, I'm going to die. They're not even there. The animal's gone, whatever consciousness was there or whatever. I don't know what it is, but it's like that. And here you were for some period of time. Now that period of time could have been half the hours that you were in the birth canal, and certainly immediately after being born, where you were in a definite survival state, right? It was touch and go, whether you're going to live or die. So I'm wondering whether is it possible that baby consciousness was in this kind of sitting on the line of will I let go and disappear, or will I hang around and try and survive? That indecision about what to do was it's a good story anyway. Who knows what's actually happening, but yeah, that could be the case.
Yes, this is also, I think, part of why it has been for me in my life so difficult, to let go. I mean, I know that you can't make the letting go, but here there was a fighting to the extreme, before awakening happened anyway. It was like that. And now there is not such a tendency, not such an extreme tendency. there is fighting sometimes. I just see it, and you know, it pops somehow. But still, this whole story that we're talking about, it might be a good story, right? But now I am in a place where I say, will it ever dissolve? And the feelings attached to the story, will they ever go? Or
Yes, yep.
maybe I'm destined to replay the whole thing
Okay,
every morning.
Okay, yeah. Now, so a good question for you to ask yourself is, if it never goes away, can I live in this body as it is? I mean, that's an old one. We use that very frequently, that particular question, but it's a really good one. Very powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yes, this I
the
ask
interesting-
morning. Every morning I'm okay anyway, it's just a feeling, and you can live with this. And then there is this other side. Yeah, but you still like it. For
of
it to
course you
go.
still like it. Yeah. And we would like it to go away, but we haven't yet paid it the right amount of money or whatever it's going to take for it to go away. Yeah.
Very expensive
So
stuff.
there is something there. There is some, I don't know, link was the word that comes to mind, but it's not right. But there is some connection to that needs satisfaction before it will go away. Something. And don't get into the idea of what is it. We're not going to be seeking for what it is, what that connection is. We simply need to recognize that there is a connection, that there is something that needs to happen. And because we don't control life, because we don't even know what it is that's going on, we have to be pretty, how can I say, accepting of whatever happens or whatever turns up. So, I mentioned to John Lee a bit earlier, that after 43 years or more of seeking and reading everything I could come across and listening to everything I could come across and watching everything I could come across, in the end, it was one sentence that tripped me over. And I suspect that one sentence is what we're looking for you to let go of this stuff. One sentence that will put it into perspective. Now, is it that you have to let go of some hidden resentment you've got for your mother because of what happened? Is it because of the universe? No. So it's great. I love that you can immediately go, no, it's not that. Yeah.
Maybe it's the universe.
Yeah. So something will break that bond for you. Something is there, and the only way we're going to find it is to not chase it and be curious. Just curious about what it is. Yeah. And like with all of this stuff, the more we look at it, now when I say look at it, I don't mean chase thoughts down rabbit holes. I mean describe it. The more we can describe what's going on, the more detailed we can focus in on it, the more likely it is to dissolve, to go away. We will touch on something on the way through into that looking. But yeah.
Are you suggesting that it's good to describe it in words?
As long as, yes, as long as you recognize that those words are not it. They're not even close to being accurate. They just point us to something. But the real value is not in describing it as words, although you might start with words. It's becoming aware of what is happening. I don't know how to say this. at a level of complexity that words can't touch. You know, so when you experience it, right, I would love to see the idea jump up that says, "Oh, great, I'm back again. Let's have another look at you."
Wow.
Yeah. Because whenever we say, "No, I don't want you," we turn our back on it and we don't look at it. We don't see it.
Yeah.
And the way through these things, the way out of these things is through them. The closer we look at them, the more intimate we can get with it, the more likely it is to change. But I do suspect that there will be a little bit of an explosion for you with the realization about this one. It's just the idea that it's just so incredibly intense and so persistent that yeah, there's something there that will just break one day and it won't be there anymore.
Let's see.
Yes. So what came to me out of this whole talk that we've been having is just in the last minute that for you, turn around and face it and welcome it when it turns up is a great exercise to start with. It's an opportunity to look closer, to move closer, to get more intimate with it. And you can't do that with memory, not like that. So when it happens tomorrow morning, wow, this is great. Let's have a look. Oh, okay, yeah. So let's look at nuances that we haven't seen before. Because in one of those nuances will be that connection. Does that feel frightening for you?
No, because I know you don't die because of a sensation, but it used to. Years ago, it used to feel.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was just thinking, imagine you were like, you walk on the street in the night, everything is very calm, you're alone, and then you're suddenly aggressed in the night. That fright that you feel all of a sudden out of the blue, it's very difficult to be there and say, okay, welcome, let's see, you know.
Yeah. And in spite of the fact that this happens every morning for you, or pretty well every morning, it's still a surprise, isn't it? When it happens, I get that feeling that it's still a surprise for you.
Yes.
It catches you unaware, and that's part of why it's so big, because it's not expected. And yet every morning, so how do you not expect it? But you don't. I get it. Yeah.
It catches me in a total feeling of innocence and vulnerability.
Yes.
And openness. Oof,
Yes.
now it's just something just coming up.
That innocence and vulnerability.
I just very strong feeling.
Mm.
There is a thought that comes up, is that it's very cruel
that it's a sort of abuse on an innocent being. There is a strong judgment against cruelty
Mm-hmm.
in general in the world, not only in this particular situation.
But I keep thinking of those forceps.
Yes.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's like here is this innocent baby that is put in a situation to take on the punishment for the whole world in one instant.
This is the feeling. It is. Yeah. Yeah, why are things like that? I mean, not only my case, but in so many cases. Well, why is it like that? It's a difficulty to accept that things are like that.
Does not fair
Not
ring a bell for you? It's not
Yeah,
fair, is it?
not fair. Not fair. Not fair. But there is not so much not fair. Yes, it does run. It does run a bell. Some. Now I just there was just relating to all these situations that I was talking about another time. They bring up the same feelings when an insurance company doesn't want to pay for my accident, for example.
Yeah.
Because it's unfair. It's unfair because there should be a right, they just don't want to pay because this is their policy nowadays. And so it brings up the same sensation of being lost and being in a fright. So yes, unfair does ring a bell. Yes.
Yeah, it's not an unsimilar feeling, is it? There's helplessness and yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow morning then.
Yeah. I'll let you know on Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you. And everybody for the patience.
Yeah. How's things going for you, Leonard? You had a fairly significant life change recently.
A significant life change? Why?
When you told your how can I put it, your friend, you told your friend that you wanted to change your
Yeah.
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm still chewing a bit on that. But yesterday, I actually ended the contact because, yeah, I thought I would be able to maintain the contact, but then I noticed that on the other side there was not a lot of sensitivity, or maybe I don't want to blame anybody. It's like nobody has a choice actually, but
you can
I just,
describe it from your perspective, though. You can say, "I felt that."
yeah, I felt that. I mean, I exposed my vulnerability to him, and then and then I didn't really feel seen with this, because what I got back were like a lot of stories about, his ex-partner, the village he lives in, all this stuff, and then also some new experiences, some sexual experience that he had with other people. And I had said before that I would not really like to hear about that. And somehow this message maybe didn't get to him, I don't know. And then also he invited me to, actually the home where he used to live with his ex-partner and where his children live, but they would not be there this weekend or something. And I felt like I listened to this audio on WhatsApp, and my body reaction was like, no. Yeah, I really, I'm quite happy that by now I don't really make it a very intellectual thing anymore. I just think, I don't care. I will just listen to my body now. I mean, and I think I communicated that quite well. I just said, I'm really sorry. I do like you, and I see that you are in a different situation, but I really guess that at the moment we are on totally different planets, and our needs don't really get together. And also this triggers some things in me that don't make me feel good. And it's like really that this inner child in me feels rejected. I can have a distant view on it, and I see that this is like relative, but still I can't change my feelings, and I wouldn't want to have to do that, I mean, that would require a lot of energy and a lot of reflection all the time. I don't really know what for, doesn't really make sense to me.
So is the overall feeling now one of relief?
Yes, because I thought, like, if I pretend to be the cool guy who can cope with this situation, then actually I will lie to myself, and that will be like, I will be in situations again and again and again that will trigger me. And actually, recently, as I told you before, I started to have a period in my life in where I felt a lot of contentment. And then I thought, like, but why should I get myself into situations that make everything super complicated and that make me, yeah, I was caught up in stories again, thinking a lot about this, like even not sleeping enough, and then yeah, and that was also part of this fatigue thing, that somehow my system at some point says like, no, just don't, like just leave it.
Yeah.
It's
So try this for a story, and I'm wondering whether this is, I mean, this is an overlay, of course, it's not actually happened, but I'm thinking that you establish boundaries, which was a bit foreign to you. It wasn't what you had done before.
Yeah.
You were just
Yeah.
learning how to say no. You learned how to set that boundary about what you can do, and that would feel pretty good, eh?
Yes. And also, I would say, what I also liked about this process was that I really didn't try to fix things, you know. I just accepted that, okay, but the reality is I feel like shit, and it feels like I feel, yeah, it was, I allowed myself to cry. Because usually I would think like, ah, come on, this is ridiculous. Don't be a teenager.
Yeah.
And then I said, yeah, but it's not nice to feel rejected, and it's okay to be sad. And then actually it helped me to process all this thing in a much easier way that wouldn't cost me a lot of cerebral energy, you know. And then also there was a moment when I kind of got back to this inner child, and that was kind of, there was like this sentence that would express exactly like this feeling, and it was like, yeah, but you said we were friends. And I think that was exactly the feeling. And then I could parent myself and tell, yeah, this child, yeah, but actually you have very good friends, and there are people who love you and who appreciate you. And then also last weekend, a very good friend of mine visited me, and we went hiking. And then now, because now I have 2 cats, so I can leave them alone for a weekend, and then that's like the opportunity to go more often to visit my friends in Berlin for a longer weekend or something like that. So I thought like, yeah, actually just stick to your old friends, and don't get yourself caught in this rather, I don't know, icky sensations with this kind of strange romantic stories.
Yeah. It's a tricky one, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, in some ideal world, you'll find somebody else who's awake and have a lovely relationship, but that may or may not happen ever. You never know, eh?
Yeah, I don't know.
But
Some-
we're all faced with all the time interacting with people who are not awake, and so consequently we have to live in that fantasy world as well as this new one. Yeah.
Actually, I always had an aversion to towards Christianity, but somehow, I mean, not in a literal way, but there is like this, how is it in English? Like thy will may happen or something.
Thy will be done.
Thy will
Thy
be done.
will be done or something like that. But sometimes recently, not that I believe in God or anything, but a friend of mine put it like that. She said like, reality is always right because it's always already what it is.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, I love that.
yeah, maybe I prefer it and not thy will be done or something like that. But it's
Well, we can
like,
say thy will be done, but it's life talking, not God or
yeah,
what you want.
but
You know?
somehow
Mm.
recently it makes sense to me. I don't know.
Mm. Yeah, it does me too. Acceptance. That's a big
Yeah.
thing. Mm.
And not manipulate things to be as I would like them to be. So,
That's a recipe for disaster, isn't it?
yeah.
Unless we can say and really mean it, that what I would like is whatever turns up.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a
That's
tricky
probably
one.
not realistic though either. Who knows? Yeah. It's
No, but actually, I mean, it was not such a pleasant experience overall, but also, yeah, I think also it was kind of necessary to see that, okay, now I can handle those things in a different way.
Mm.
I mean, to handle it, it was not even, I didn't do anything actually. It was spontaneous. It was
Mm.
just like,
Mm.
there was no Leonard trying to
Yep.
yeah, okay, maybe I can try it. No, it was like my body said nope, it won't work.
Right. Mm.
And I think before I would have had like this kind of self images, thinking like, yeah, but you are cool enough to
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Mm. How are you going, Jen? I don't think I ever asked you how you're going. I always presume you're going well.
Thanks. Well, at the moment, I'm pretty okay. I had an interesting period over the last couple of months. Yeah, where I wasn't okay for quite some time, and it was all kind of out of my normal cyclical thing, which was weird and annoying. And during that time, yeah, there was an awful lot of mind generated really nasty like stuff. Yeah, it was kind of right back into a quite
Okay. Well,
depressive kind of mode based on some things that had happened, some things happened, you know, and yeah, it went on for so long. Like I'd had kind of a month of feeling really good and sort of gone through my normal time of, you know, expecting to drop, and then ended up in a month of feeling like intensely pretty terrible. So anyway, happily that's lifted again. So to me, to explain it, it kind of feels a little bit, well, like a lunar cycle, but where energy's kind of going up or it's going down, and it like really drags down. So during that time, it actually, what you'd said to me before about how when you feel unwell, you know, whether it's a cold or whatever, that's the time that your thoughts can get a hold, or that's the time that will kind of come up. Yeah, that was really obvious.
Yeah.
In that moment. But I've recently, I mean, that kind of stuff comes reasonably regularly, those sorts of thoughts. But I've recently come across David Bingham, and in listening to his conversations with people, there was a time, probably it's probably a week and a half ago, or roughly, whatever, where I think for the first time I really got a clear understanding of what direct experience is, and for me. Yeah, so I don't think that before then I'd been able to understand it, or, well, I hadn't. It seems so stupid when you like when you do see it, it's like, oh, how could I have not understood that? But yeah, so yeah, the exercises that he goes through, I had a really clear moment in one particular, I was listening to a particular talk and I was doing my work in the forest, and it became really obvious to me what is meant by direct experience, which was great. And he talks about like the mind issuing these invitations, he calls them. So it's kind of these invitations back into the mind. And so within doing those exercises, or, you know, along with the person that he was talking to, that all became really obvious to me. And so while I already knew that thinking, or your thoughts, one's thought, the thoughts over here, particularly over here, are not always reliable and cannot always be believed, certainly in, you know, the identification that's happened with depression and things like that in the past. But here I'm now, it's now much more obvious that when these invitations are coming, and they come all the time, of course, but I think there's been more of a sort of split just in the last recently, of being able to not engage with them so much. Although today I was out finding myself, you know, really engaging, because of course these invitations are so
seductive.
Yeah, they're seductive, and they're made precisely for the person, you know.
Absolutely. Custom built,
exactly what's gonna get you in. And so yeah, there were a few times today that I was like, oh, here I go again, you know.
You saw it. One thing that comes out of this for me as you're talking is, are you unable to ask for help or engagement? Even help's not the right word necessarily, but you went through all of that and kept it to yourself. I had no idea that you were in that state when you were in the worst of it. I would love you to have emailed me or something about it.
I did consider emailing you. It was interesting, because the last time I was in this group, because I've been away for a couple of weeks, I was actually at a funeral for the most of the last week. And prior to that, I was just really tired. And the time before that, I was in this group, and I had been thinking a lot about talking in the group. which is one of my typical invitations, is that imagining something that's not happening right now. And so I'll be in the conversation with you when it's not Wednesday afternoon, when it's some other time, you know. And when it came to that moment, actually in the group, I felt a lot of anxiety, I guess, about putting out what it was that was really eating me up at the time, particularly as it goes online and things like that. And it was kind of during the course of the group, I became more and more pleased that you weren't asking me how I was. And yeah, in the end, kind of felt like, yeah, I don't know if I really want to put this right out there.
I can always, you know, at your request, turn off the recording and turn it back on later on. That's not a problem. Or, you know, yeah, we can have a session where there's no recording if you like, whatever.
Right. I hadn't thought of that. And I'm trying to think of now, like, just, so for me, having really bad, uncomfortable times is not
novel.
It's not novel. It's less so these days. Like I've kind of yeah, done a lot of work, you know, all that. The last few years have been, yeah, really kind of focused on getting out of that shit, because it was like, yeah, is it like it's this or I'm going to end it, you know. And so that is one thing I noted, because I was actually driving home on Monday morning, which is my time for the last meeting, and when Don was speaking, I have a real strong affinity for him and what he goes through, and so I sort of lost my train there a little bit, but I think for what's happened over here, my experience here is that has been that negative thinking has been almost like an addiction, and also a very, very strong, like, identifying with that, which, I mean, I know, you know, this is all about what we identify with, isn't it? And recognizing that that thing that we think we are, that person, that character that we think we are, is not what we are. And I know there was a very strong attraction when I first found out about this idea of no self, and understood that it was possible for anybody, not just Buddhist monks, that there was a strong desire for the character to die, to disappear, be gone. And yeah, now I think so, after, I don't know, a couple of months of being in this group, there's been a lot of things that have been, well, said to me in conversation, but also obviously that I've picked up from other people, or even just watching how I react with some things. So there have been lots of things that have been quite useful, and all of that. And I'd be less inclined now to say that I wasn't realized, because you challenged me and Ramez on that at one stage. And I still feel like it's still a process for me. It's still happening. It's not completely happened yet.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, well, yeah. But so, I mean, even the first, you know, dropping of the first feta or the kensho or whatever, but I'm quite happy now, like, for it to be a process. I don't feel like it needs to be, you know, sudden kind of thing. So yeah, essentially, I feel I'm pretty good at the moment, and yeah, pretty happy with where my process is.
You looking forward to menopause?
Well, yes, in many ways. I mean, this period that I'm in at the moment, it's perimenopause. So you get, it's like all, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's a tumultuous time, isn't it?
Yeah. And so having that cyclical thing, but go really out of cycle.
And intensity and whatever, everything's changing.
Yeah. I do think that it's had a huge part to play in what I had seen as depression, and
Sure.
what
How
was.
could it not? You know, how could it not? Absolutely. Yeah.
And I've also wondered if part of it for me is potentially that again, David Bingham said a few things about this process somehow being potentially easier for women, because they are, you know, perhaps some of them more closer to intuition and you know, direct experience, perhaps, in those sorts of things. And I thought it's so funny, because my character as a young'un, I did, you know, decide that I was going to be less feminine and, you know, more logical and rational and in the brain, and
A bit more blokey.
all those sorts of things. And, you know, maybe here is my body kind of screaming at me, going, hey, listen, get with the moon.
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows? I don't know.
Oh, thank you for that. That was pretty good. Yeah.
I don't know if Ramis would like to say something.
Are you there, Ramos? I guess he's not there. Yes, Sylvia. Yeah, don't put your hand up, just jump in. Yeah.
Just in the meanwhile, would you mind sharing that sentence that changed everything after 40 years for you?
For me, yeah, okay. yeah. I told John Lee what it was earlier on, and I met a bloke, and he said to me after a while in the conversation, he said to me, You know, Vince, he said that the mosquito bite of seeking will never heal while you continue to scratch it.
Mm. Good.
Yeah. And it's eerie, that sentence, because I remember it so clearly. Yet at the same time, what that sentence did for me was a bit of a two-step leap from that. And the first step was that if I'm not a seeker, then what's left is a total acceptance of what is here. And then the realization almost immediately happened that but what is here is already finished by the time I become aware of it. And that led me straight into that. Obviously, any idea to want it differently or to try and change it is just a ridiculous waste of everything. There is no point in wanting anything to be different. So the catchphrase that turned up for me at that point was, this is it. This being what my current experience was. And that's so complete. There's nothing I can do before or after or about that. It's just, that's the way it is. It's this. And when you fall into something like acceptance of what life offers, it's amazing how the realization of how much of our energy and time and thought processes went into wanting it to be different and how we would like it to be and all of that kind of stuff. It was just phenomenal. I just must have freed up 80% of my energy in one go. It was just amazing. Yeah.
Mm.
Listening to Sylvia and Leonard, maybe I can put what I feel in words that will be more understandable. What Sylvia said about cruelty towards innocent and vulnerable. It touched. And this, what Leonard said, your will be done, that it's life's will. Like, you know, Schopenhauer and his Wille zum Leben. Not a nice thing. Because it's also life's will for this cruelty to happen. Life is cruel. And Vince, you like fantasy and science fiction, so you are probably acquainted with the story of the ones who walk away from Omelas by Ursula Le Guin. I'm not sure how her name, Le Guin, Ursula Le Guin.
Ursula Le Guin, yeah, I know of her. I have probably read stuff in the past. I don't remember any of it though.
There is a very famous story.
Yes.
Ones who walk away from Omelas.
From Omelette.
Omelas. It's Salerno backwards. Omelas.
Yeah, no, I don't know it. Yeah.
It's about a town where everyone lives in perfect happiness. But the price of this happiness is that they have to sacrifice one child that lives in suffering for all life. And
And that is you?
no,
Good.
my life is happy,
Mm,
but everything in the world is connected.
yes.
And my life is happy because somewhere, somewhen, there was a cruelty toward an innocent.
Mhm, mm. Mm.
The world is not fair. Life is not fair.
No.
It's not that it should be fair. It cannot be otherwise.
Mm. Well, it's also true
So,
to say it can't be unfair. So life doesn't give a shit about fairness or unfairness.
oh, it's cruel. And I can accept it because I am helpless.
Mm.
It has to be like this. But I can't accept it as a right thing to
Mm.
be.
So your focus is on that sacrificial child who will spend their life suffering for your happiness.
It is true. It is just looking at the big picture.
Yes, yes, yes. So
Not
we would
not
see all of the victims in Palestine, for example, as enabling our happiness.
or Sylvia.
Yes.
I don't have to go for Palestine.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Just but any
Although
yeah. Hmm.
Can you hear me? Okay, because I think the room I'm in is kind of echoing. There's a lot of echo here. I think, Bianca, you really should question his belief.
for me you are quiet.
You cannot hear me?
I hear you, but not too well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think it's the room I'm in is not good, so maybe I will not speak today.
I turned my volume right up for you and I can hear you okay. So your input volume is probably down.
Well, we try and let's see what happens. But I think, Bianca, you should examine this belief. Because to me, what you are expressing, it's the core belief in duality. That in the sense that what I have, someone else cannot have it. And what I have taken from someone. So this is kind of, in Christianity, this is the core of the guilt.
No, it's not in that sense. It's in the sense that everything is connected. Things are conditioned.
So why, what, and so what?
That nothing that cannot exist without and with everything else.
But I don't see the connection between your happiness and other suffering.
Does connection imply causality for you?
uh, Remind me, what's the difference between conditionality and causality?
If you have two, whatever, connected, there is not necessarily a flow between them one way or the other way. Where with causality, there's a definite flow in one direction to the other. With causality, we're saying that the second thing depends on the first thing. With connection, there's not a second or a first. They're both firsts or they're both seconds.
Mm-hmm. There's no causality, it's conditionality.
Right.
Still think that it's not a. There is better way to approach this situation about other suffering, because if you believe that your happiness is kind of a reflection of the suffering of someone else, you must feel guilty. So this is not happiness, really.
No, you're God. You're so focused on just your happiness, just your suffering.
And how that make you feel?
Right now, I'm frustrated because of miscommunication.
Mm. So are we going to try to communicate, or you feel frustration and that's it? I don't understand.
I'm thinking. Just can we put aside my personal happiness and suffering and just looking at life of all beings, that there is cruelty to innocent and vulnerable in life. It is a fact. It is it has to happen.
I wonder if that cruelty is a particularly human thing. And like, I mean, I can think about cats playing with mice, for example, but I'm not sure if I would call that cruelty in the same way that that humans do cruelty so extraordinarily well, and all sorts of other abominations to the planet and to nature and all those things. And why I draw the distinction between humans' ability to be cruel is because I'm not sure that that it is an aspect of life in general.
I'm talking about cruelty in the sense that Sylvia was talking about cruelty. No one was being cruel, but there was cruelty.
So what occurs to me is the only way you know of this cruelty is from what you hear, see, read. It all enters to you through your mind. It's not part of your experience at the moment, is it?
Well, it enters my mind, so it is my experience.
Okay, true. So what's the difference between that experience and when I say pink elephant? That enters through your mind and you experience something. But there's a totally different response to one than the other, isn't there?
Yes, the reaction and response are also part of experience.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess we all have some inkling of an experience where we can use to empathize with those who are suffering cruelty. And of course, if we go down that road, it becomes pretty big, doesn't it? We really feel horrible about what's going on.
But you see, we are not. You say with what is going on, but the what is going on, you are not in contact with.
Mm.
You're in contact with what you believe is going on somewhere.
Yeah.
So even if someone is suffering somewhere, maybe, but in reality, it's a story. So I think there is no point really in thinking about that or talking about that, because either you are in contact with it directly, like you are in a war situation, or you are a doctor, or you are, I don't know, you feel engaged in saving the world somehow, and you face those actions in front of you in your direct experience. Yes.
Maybe you are avoiding this feeling.
No, I'm not saying that I don't feel the full human spectrum.
Okay, I was being, but
I'm just saying there is no need to add stories to what's happening. Hard enough. That's kind of the point I was trying to make. Like, even if someone is suffering somewhere, those people doesn't need you to suffer, and your suffering doesn't help them in any way. So there's no point. There's no point in suffering with them. And if you think about them and you suffer, this doesn't help anyone either. So either there is an action that is taken straightforward to solve the problem that you see in front of you, or there is no point thinking about it.
okay. I have this. I was shaking so much because I feel the cruelty in being forced to sit there and watch the movie.
Oh, I understand. You feel
It is
cruelty
the cruelty
in
on
you.
the innocent. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. This is the point, to really feel the full cruelty in your experience right now, and don't project it somewhere outside that has to be solved. It had to be felt full on, you know.
So what comes to mind here with what David just said, Bianca, is that I wonder if your awareness of the cruelty in people around the world, in whatever, I wonder if that's a way of you avoiding the cruelty you feel in yourself, not from yourself, but to yourself, or whatever. Yeah, is it an avoidance thing?
No.
Okay.
The big picture is still true. And if I see the big picture, then I see the big picture, and fighting it would be adding another layer of resisting what is.
Mm.
This is how I see it.
But when you say big picture, what do you mean by big picture?
Not only me.
What do you mean?
I can be in contact with my feelings and see the big picture at the same time.
What is the big picture?
It's all of the movie that I see with others suffering.
Yeah, but the movie you see is not the big picture. It's a frame.
There is nothing more that I can see.
That's what I'm saying. So what you see is not the big picture. It's a picture, and there is a reaction. But to say that it is the big picture, it's an assumption.
That's just how I call it. To differentiate it from my feeling,
Yeah, but you see, you make a difference where there is none. It's not your feeling in a big picture. There is the picture and your feeling is the screen. There is no a little you and a big picture. There is just your experience.
and yet you are saying about adding something.
I didn't understand what you're saying.
Because you've said that there's no need to add anything.
Yes.
Add to what?
I said it because you seem to be very clear, and it's a fact to you that there is people suffering somewhere. There is some cruelty somewhere outside in some big picture that you can see. And I'm just saying those are images. That even if those are what for you are fact, that someone somewhere is suffering, there's cruelty, there's a victim, there's abuser, and all of this story. Even if those are real, if those things are not appearing in your like in front of you, and you can act to change it, there is no point thinking about it, because what you think about it and what you feel about it, the suffering you feel, and the story that those poor people, they are suffering, all of this is not helping those people that you believe are out there.
Okay, it's too much and I'm too tired. I give up on communication.
Just for now.
Could I tell a little story which I think kind of illustrates what David is saying? So I'm somebody who has felt the suffering of the world a great deal for a very long time. And years ago, I was a paramedic in Auckland, and I went to a guy, an accident where there had been a gas explosion, and multiple people were injured. Somebody had died, and the patient that I took had both his legs blown off and looked like he was going to lose both of his arms as well. And we took him in, and for weeks after that, he was in my head, and I was grieving the loss of his legs. It was a massive thing to me about this poor man and how he was going to deal with life after that. And yeah, a month or so after this job, or two, I can't remember how long later, would have been a wee while later, he was actually, there was a 60 Minutes program about him. And he was this incredible, he was like the most into life guy. He'd just accepted what had happened. He was about to be organizing, or he was organizing a like cross-country run, because that was what he'd always been into, and he hadn't stopped being into that just because of losing his legs. And it was just that really clear message to me that I was inflicting suffering on myself, which I thought was somebody else's suffering, but it wasn't. They weren't having that experience, or the experience that I assumed was going on. And yeah, I think that we do that. We have this idea of seeing the world, but what we see is from our own perspective. We're not seeing the world necessarily.
Yeah, that's good.
Agree.
A very strong story.
Mm,
Good job.
it's a good one, yeah. Yeah, we always assume things, don't we? You want to see a bunch of happy kids playing, go to the most impoverished village in Africa, and they'll be there running around being extremely happy. Yeah. They did a survey a few years ago of the happy people in the world, and the happiest was a German monk. But the second happiest was a family in India who lived in a one-room house with 7 other families. And when they slept of a night, there was nowhere on the floor you could walk, because the whole floor area was covered by people. And they were the second happiest in the world. So there's no explaining what other people go through, is there? It's just the idea that we have about them. Mm.
I remember what time I was outside on the garden. I was on a hammock, just watching the blue sky, and just I felt a huge happiness coming, but just wow, a huge bliss. And at some point, it just shifted dramatically, and suddenly I was kind of thrown into what somehow I understand Bianca is talking about. It is everything that the worst that human can think of, and suddenly I felt I started to cry, like just so long, I just this huge wave of horror that's pouring through me, And at the time, I had those kind of, this is the suffering of the world and everything, just because we are kind of, there is interconnection, and I think it can be a good frame and it happened, those events happen. But it's also important to really
I
get
don't
clear
know.
about the. Can you, Bianca?
Because you are talking about wars, and for me, the first thing that comes to my mind is birth.
Birth?
Birth, childbirth, not war.
Hmm.
I don't understand. I
The
say war.
cruelty. The first thing that
The
comes to
birth.
my
Okay.
mind when thinking of this cruelty toward innocent is childbirth.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a big topic.
Is it cruelty? Is childbirth cruelty?
They say we have all the trauma from the birth.
Yeah.
But again, is that cruelty? Like trauma can happen in all sorts of ways.
So here a good discussion might be between the idea of it being trauma and the idea of it being cruelty. And so if we look at the meaning of those words, something might come to light. So what one would describe as trauma, Bianca is describing as cruelty. And cruelty has the implication that it's inflicted by a conscious being. When we see a cat playing with a mouse, it's our projection that they are being cruel. But they don't know anything about cruelty. It's certainly traumatic for the mouse. Well, maybe, I presume it is. So is there a difference between cruelty and trauma for you, Bianca? Every baby suffers trauma, no doubt about that. When do we start calling it cruelty?
Maybe it's a concept of life being cruel.
Well, if you're into home births, you would accuse every hospital birth as being inflicted and cruel.
I think I understand now that I'm missing a piece, because I understand that Sylvia shared something very deep and I kind of miss it, and now something else is coming up, and I think I'm missing what Bianca, from where Bianca is talking about. So maybe this is where kind
Well,
of the
yeah,
miscommunication.
maybe. Maybe Sylvia could answer.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
when-
I don't need. I'm just naming it just for. Because I think it's good to name when there was some miscommunication, and I'm seeing. Okay, so there was a piece that Sylvia shared that triggers something in you, and I don't have this piece. It is fine. I'm just naming it. Maybe that's why we didn't really connect with what we were talking about. But I don't need Sylvia to talk again. I'm just naming it.
Where does innocence fit into this, Bianca? Where innocence? Has the cruelty got something to do with innocence? Are the people that cruelty is perpetrated on innocent? Is that part of the horror of it?
Yes, it's even the cruelty is innocent. You know, it's like an oh Everything of it is innocent, so horrifying.
Your
Yeah,
body
like
is shaking.
a child, like a child tearing apart, I don't know, a snail or something.
Yep, that would be innocent cruelty, wouldn't it?
Do you feel that your body is shaking again, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does that shaking feel like it's containing something or expressing something?
I don't know.
It's good to allow it to happen, I think.
Mhm.
You're rocking and
I see. I've started rocking, so I'm calming myself.
yeah. But you
The
can allow
body is
yourself to
calming.
shake if you want. You can allow yourself to shake. I don't mind.
Yeah, the rocking started by itself, so
Yeah. Okay. Mm. So it's obviously you are close to something when your body's reacting like this.
mhm.
You're very close to something. Yeah, we don't have to find it. We don't have to expose it. Just being aware that we're close is enough at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, birth, it's a very tricky situation because for the baby there is no good choice. It's in the womb and he is ripe to birth, right? It's he there's no good choice for the baby right from the start, from his perspective at the moment. Because if he stay into the womb, he kill his mother, but for him is himself. So if he stay in the womb, he killing himself. And this being birthed is like feel like a lot like a death to him. You know, to go somewhere that he has no idea what's happening there. And it's not an easy thing to do.
Mm.
So often it's just naturally it's very tough with the baby. This is one layer that I think is good to name. And the other one is the mother and the people around want the baby to be born, to be born. It has to step out of this womb one way or another. And this is the other layer, how this happens, how the baby reacts, how the mother body is shaped, and the situation. This is another layer, how people around help and how this help is given. Somehow it's not given in a encompassing, welcoming, and understanding from the perspective of the baby. It's way more like a mechanics. So the baby is difficult. It doesn't feel received, and there is others which people who help the mother and the baby are more understanding of the perspective of the baby and the situation and the birth. Like have a different taste, kind of. But I just want to name those two layers because and there's many more, but because often birth, everything gets kind of squeezed to one strong, impossible emotion. So sometimes just to take some part of it a little bit can give some space. And from as a parent, when my wife was pregnant, the baby had a tumor inside of him. So we went to so 1 month before he was born, we had everything organized for a healthy birth and at home with people and music and swimming pool and all of the hippie stuff. And suddenly we just find that tumor, and suddenly we are in a hospital with 7 doctors telling us that it can die at any moment and you have to do this. So it shifts everything. It was very difficult. But I think from the doctor wanted to help us from their perspective. So this is what is difficult with birth and hospital at the moment. We want their help, but we don't like how it is given. And even the doctor want to do different, but they also don't feel that they cannot do differently. So everyone is kind of trapped in this kind of, I don't have a lot of choice. And the baby represents this innocence that is kind of at the bottom of all of this, all of this energy, and it just the body kind of trap everything. And this is kind of birth. It's kind of messy often. And for everyone, but for a lot of people, it's very messy. And often there is no help of the parent or the child to integrate what's happening. No one talk about birth ever, because it's too much. But now, as we talk about it, you see there's a lot coming up for everyone.
I feel you're right, Bianca. Life is cruel. And I feel that I understand where you're coming from more now than I did just before. Yeah.
Yeah, me too, Bianca, because if you come from this perspective of being a baby, well, birth is literally cutting you it's cutting you in half, right? You are one with mommy, and after you are two, even if you don't feel it, but you know it is happening. So it's literally being cut in half. So yeah, from this perspective, a lot of things feel terrible. Can be, but not everything. I think it's not everything is terrible.
I wonder if a baby leaving the home that they've grown up in for 9 months, leaving the womb, I wonder if there's grief about that. Is it possible that a baby experiences grief, or even just a sense of loss about that so secure, wonderfully warm, secure place that we spent 9 months in, and all of a sudden it's gone? Surely there is a sense of loss even for a newborn baby? I don't know, of course. Have no idea. But yeah. It's an interesting concept.
Well, the belief that the baby feels safe in the womb.
Oh, well, that too. Yes. Yeah.
I have worked with people who have stories that really shake a lot of things, you know.
Yeah.
Difficulties but yeah, exploring birth and your own birth and the birth of your parents, the birth of your child, is very, very rich.
Mm.
It's a very good exploration.
A good horror story. We are suffering so much in the womb, and then it gets even worse.
Okay. Oh no. Oh, I had a much nicer story than that before. Yeah.
But
Mm.
you see, this is kind of the trick of, even in the womb, there is something, there is how to call it without that, there's this kind of blueprint. There's this presence all the way. As it is now, as it is in every very hard situation. And there are people who talk about it, people who are in jail, people who went to camp, who went to war, and they talk about this kind of present, this kind of everything is okay inside, even if all around it hell break loose, you know. So I cannot speak from my own experience, but there are people who do, there are people who go through that. And I'm convinced that baby have the capacity, but not everyone can. It is possible to kind of revisit our birth and the memories, and to revisit it with the connection of this present.
Blanca, there is a seeing here sometimes that life's cruelty contains like the seed of awakening. It's even a catalyst of awakening. I don't know if it's just a comforting belief, or if it is sometimes it feels more like a recognition, and sometimes it feels more like a comforting belief. I'm not even sure that it is this way, but I think at least here on a more like for this body somehow, what has been the first, probably the first cruelty, the one about birth, on a certain level, I think has been the catalyst of awakening. And this could be true on a larger scale, maybe.
I would agree. I would say most people that come to, or that get on a spiritual seeking journey, do so out of suffering. I mean, there may be the odd exception, but I would say the majority would be there that way. And I certainly recognize I suffered. As a child, I suffered incredibly. For me, it was, I even remember, ridiculous that as this is, I've got a red hunting knife, a little knife as a scout. I was a scout, and I got this red knife for a present, I think. And at one point, and I was probably, I don't know, 9 years old, and I was determined I went under the house with this knife and I was going to kill myself. That's how bad life was. And then to top it all off, I was suffering so much I wanted to kill myself. And then to top it off, I was too afraid to kill myself. So I suffered even more because I didn't do it. You know? But I mean, that's really dramatizing something, but that was my life, you know? And yet from the outside, I was just a normal, happy kid. But there you go. So I think everybody who comes to this probably comes from suffering.
Yeah, it's, I understand what you say, Vince. I just wanted to point out the difference maybe between life's cruelty and suffering,
Yeah.
which is not exactly in
Yeah,
my,
I
from
agree.
my point of view, is not exactly the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like the primordial, sort of primordial cruelty intrinsic to life contains the seed, you know, like suffering can be a consequence of that primordial cruelty. It's
Yeah.
like the, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, my suffering came from life is not fair. That was always that. And that not fair came from my perceived cruelty. Yeah. What adults did to me as a child was terribly cruel. I mean, they wouldn't think so, but as a child, I thought so.
Do you think, Sylvia, that that primordial cruelty of life that contains the seed for awakening is that what you said is for a start?
Yeah, that's more or less what I see. I mean, sometimes I ask myself, I question myself on this, because could also be like comforting, you know, just believing this. So it's not like a firm belief, but it's a possibility. I say, well, maybe, you know, it's like that. I'm not sure.
And it doesn't have to be one or the other. It could be both those things. It could be both comforting and the way it is.
Yeah.
So that the cruelty of life holds within it the potential for life's awakening.
That's what I was trying to say.
And how extra cruel is it that some people experience that cruelty, but that seed never germinates? That's extra cruel.
Because it's not on a personal level anyway. You
yes.
know?
Yeah.
That way, as long as we or a separate one, then we are bound to see that in injustice. When we come to recognize that's not what we are, then in that particular body, it didn't take place during a lifetime, but on a larger scale, it did take place. I mean, yes, it's a little bit difficult to express.
I would just like to ask Bianca, when Sylvia just said a moment ago about it not being personal, a question jumped up for me. Is it personal for you or not? I really don't know. Sometimes I think it's not, and sometimes I think it is.
Sylvia said that awakening is not on personal level.
The cruelty is not personal.
The cruelty?
What was it that you said, Sylvia? What wasn't personal? I took it that you meant the cruelty, but I may be wrong.
No, the awakening, well, both actually.
Okay.
The awakening.
All right, yeah. Yeah, neither are personal. True, I get that. Yeah.
Well, also like Jen was saying that it's primordial cruelty. So in this sense, it's not so personal.
Hmm.
Well, I feel I am also innocently cruel
Hmm.
just because I'm a living organism.
Yeah, you're part of it. Yeah. So I get that word primordial sounds like it's a good fit for what you're describing. It is primordial cruelty that you're talking about, eh? Yeah. What life inflicts just to continue, it does that. Yeah. Kind of. I keep
But
saying
again,
things that sound stupid afterwards. Sorry, Sylvia.
no, just I just wanted to, because, excuse me, I was bothered by my daughter who was there at the door making signs and calling me, and I lost a little bit track of what was being said. So just to go back, I think that this, what we are calling primordial cruelty, can very well be contributing to awakening on a larger scale, like on a planetary scale. Although not everybody will respond to that cruelty with awakening, as you were saying, Vince. You know, it's not that everybody will recognize reality through that lived or perceived cruelty, maybe not, but even that body will, in its own way, contribute. I mean, it might as well be as the suffering through which that particular body, who never will awaken, so the suffering through which that body is going through, will sort of increase the level. How can I say that? I see that everything is contributing to awakening.
Yeah, I have a picture from what you're saying there. So even if the seed doesn't germinate for them, their suffering might be added to the person next door, and that might be enough for their seed to germinate or whatever.
So and since the seeds, every seed, they are not personal, so that contribution is just to awakening of
Yes.
this big body that we are.
Yep. Yeah.
And sometimes when I have this, like, I don't know if I should call them recognitions or whatever, I ask myself, you just try to comfort yourself.
Well, listen, it's okay to pat yourself on the shoulder if you see yourself doing it. Right? You're not being fooled then, but yeah, that's right. Well, of course, we love being patted on the shoulder, every one of us.
I mean, not pat it like you're doing it well, but like believing that cruelty is not just for its own sake, but even cruelty has a sense, a purpose, a meaning.
Yes, yeah.
Like maybe I'm just wanting to find a meaning everywhere, and maybe it is not like this. Am I being clear?
I get you. Yeah. I think we always need to be suspicious of meaning. Go on, Bianca.
But this is also what stirs in this image of Omelas, that there is a child suffering, but the suffering of this child has meaning. because the whole city is happy
Yeah.
because and for me it's still okay. The suffering is and cruelty are needed for awakening to happen, but is it worth it?
Ah, you, you,
Maybe
you'll never know that one until it happens.
unless the awakened are the ones who walk away from Omelas.
So in this story, in the Ursula Le Guin story, when they walk away, they forego a lifetime of happiness, but they don't have to sacrifice a child for that.
It's the
I'll have to read the story now. Yeah.
Yes, it's the last sentence of the story, and I wouldn't like to
Spoiler alert.
to say it in wrong words.
Mm.
Or maybe I will find it very quickly.
But Blanca, I think that at least up to a certain extent, and in, you know, an awakened one, if there is such a thing as an awakened one, does walk away, because unless he's just, you know, blah blah blah, he's not contributing to the suffering anymore. I mean, hopefully. So he's walking away from Omelas.
That's interesting. Yeah.
That's a nice story.
Mm.
But I mean, if suffering, no, you didn't say suffering, you said cruelty, maybe, has within it the seed for awakening, then I mean, I don't know, somehow I mean, it sounds a bit weird, but to make other people suffer, I think is not to be avoided. I mean, it's not possible anyway. And then also, if one learns from the suffering, then it would also not make sense to not make anybody suffer, because then nobody would have the opportunity to grow somehow.
Well,
Leonard, I don't think that you can grow only from suffering. I think this is maybe one of the biggest engines for growth right now at this level of evolution. But I don't think it's the only one. And maybe it's not bound to be the only one or the most important one. One day, who knows?
yeah, that's a good one to consider. And of course, even then we have to go back and define what we talk about as growth as well. So we're getting into fairyland stories about what growth is. Yeah. But yeah. Yeah. So when you were saying that, Sylvia, I'm thinking, well, what besides suffering would cause growth? Well, we say growth, we say evolution, or do we say something? I don't know. And certainly that would seem to be one of the biggest ones that people grow out of. Now, suffering is maybe not the right word here, but difficulties that we have that cause us to motivate us to find answers and so on. And here for me, when, you know, something comes up, some selfing happens, that's definitely seen as an opportunity to discover and you'd call it growing out of that, growth out of that, or at least a movement out of that. Yet when things are good, well, it does happen when things are good, you know. So when I feel really, really, really good, often I question what's going on, that I'm feeling really, really good. Not like I'm wanting to undo it, but certainly wondering whether or not that's based on some conceptual thing or not. I don't know. I'm going to be thinking for the rest of the week now about suffering, aren't I?
I found the ending of this short story, so I can put it in chat.
Yes. Mm.
That's a clever author. Looks like ready for another book. Yeah. Yeah, the mystery of it. That's right. But of course, there's the implication that there's some motive, there's some drive for them to walk away like that. Something attractive, maybe. And it makes me wonder about Ursula Le Guin. Does she know
made me
something?
cry.
Is that a cry of happiness or a cry of sadness? You're muted. Yeah, it's like that. It's terrible. You can't do that again, can you? Yeah.
It's a cry when seeing something beautiful.
Mm. It is beautiful, isn't it? There's that for sure, yeah. There's something more profound than happiness. Mm. All right. Well, I reckon that's a good note to wind up on. It's been well, I say this every time, you know, but it has been a brilliant meeting. I just love where the mind has gone this time. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Sylvia, for triggering.
Yes. Thank you, Sylvia, for
It was.
everything. Yeah.
Well, I didn't do anything.
All right.
I was wondering, Blanca, where are you from?
Poland.
Poland. Okay.
And where are you, Sylvia?
I'm in Switzerland on the border with Italy.
Oh, you told me that before. Yes, yes. And David, who was here before, David Bonney, he is Swiss, but he's now living in Bali for the moment, anyway.
That's what you said, but David has an Israeli accent. He doesn't have a Swiss accent.
Oh, okay, okay.
I don't know. He might have been living in Switzerland, but his accent isn't Swiss.
Right, okay, yeah. No, I think he's been living in lots of places, but we'll ask him next time, yeah.
I have a hobby of detecting accents, and I couldn't figure out Blanca's accent.
Ah, okay, yes. Oh, she's unique, that one. Totally unique. She doesn't belong to any one place.
I don't know.
Mm.
Now that you know that I'm Polish, Does it sound right?
It doesn't sound right.
I mean, do I have a Polish accent?
I don't know because I don't know about Polish language. I'm sure you have the right accent. I'm perfectly sure you have.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good.